everybody. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. We are so excited because tonight we're joined by creator of the 10X movement, CEO of Cardone Capital, author, so many things. How many accolades can we give you? Grant Cardone, welcome to the show. We were just talking before we started about the last time we spoke. It was in an interview format as well, but you were actually interviewing me. The roles were reversed here. And you had a big following on Twitter, I think, that tuned in to listen to us. For people who might not be too familiar with you, you got 4.2 million followers on Instagram. You have almost 1 million on Twitter. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of got where you are right now, Grant.
Yeah, so I'm from Lake Charles, Louisiana, a little refinery town in Louisiana, and raised by a single mom. And been working hard, since I was 5 years old. Had some very, very difficult growing up years that set me way back. Turned my life around when I was 25, got on the right track. And then for the last, 30 years, I've been trying to figure out how to be a businessman. So when social media came around in 2000, really 2008, 9, and 10, it started like sprouting. At the same time, the economy had collapsed and really hurt my 3 little startup businesses. And I looked at social. A guy said to me one day, I was in LA. I lived in LA for 25 years. We don't live there anymore, but
God bless. Yeah. Good thing you got out.
We left before it was popular to leave. Okay.
Right.
And this guy said, you should get on Facebook. I said, man, look, I'm barely keeping my business alive. I don't have time for Facebook. And he's like, this social media stuff is going to happen. I said, man, BS. I don't have time for this. And when he walked out of my office, I said, you know what? You sound like an old man saying no to something prior to even investigating. That's ignorant, right? So the next day same day, I had a Facebook account, a YouTube account. That was 16 million followers ago, and it just exploded my business.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, you just said it. You were raised in Louisiana. I read that you got a degree in accounting.
That's true.
And then you became a car salesman because you needed to get a job. Did you ever think that you would end up where you are today? Was that the goal? I think for a lot of people, especially right now, look, times are tough for so many people, despite what you'll hear about the unemployment numbers out there from the Biden administration. It's tough. Small businesses are having a hard time hiring people. But you obviously had some internal drive that drove you to be successful. Was that sort of always the plan for you?
Well, my dad died when I was 10, and he was a very success-driven guy. He wanted to take care of his family. It wasn't for cars and watches, and he would have liked to have had some of that. But he was my success model, right? And when he died, the income stopped. It's very, very consistent with what's about to happen to middle-class America right now.
Right.
And when I was 10 to 15, I was watching my mom just like struggle. She was so scared. My dad did everything right, Lara. He played by the book. He got rid of all his debt. He worked hard. He saved his money, had life insurance, everything by the book. But when he died, the income stopped. And when the income stopped, my mom went into fear. She didn't know what to do. Like, she didn't know how to manage the life and raise 5 kids.
Wow.
So I became like obsessed with this idea. Okay, I'm going to be able to take care of my mom one day. I'm never going to let this happen to me. And so when I was 25, I was unemployable. Between 15 and 25, I had a drug dealer got a hold of me, and my life went down the tubes. When you want a daddy, if you want a mentor, you'll find it. Somebody will be your mentor.
They'll fill the void. Yeah,
exactly. And he did. And he became my dad and a replacement because my uncles didn't step up. They had their own problems going on. So 25, I cleaned my life up, and I'm like, I got to get back on track here. I got to get back on track. I need to go back to the original plan was to be successful. It was never to be a drug addict. And so I started rebuilding. The only people that would hire me was a car dealer. I hated sales, but I learned to get great at something I didn't like to do. And I became very, very good at it. And I would end up teaching Ford Motor Company and Nissan and Audi how to sell cars.
No way, really?
Yeah, I would end up consulting these companies and changing the way they handled customers. This was all pre-internet, so that you didn't have to like go through this 3 and 4 hour painful process to buy a car, which you probably never had to go through.
That's not true. You know, what's interesting is that when I was growing up, I mean, speaking of cars, my dad was one of these people who was dead set on us only owning a car, right? We were never going to lease a car because he would always say that's a waste of money. And so for my whole life, I grew up until I met my husband thinking like that was the way you do it. And you only buy cars, you never lease them. But I have friends who do both. Where do you stand on that, being, in the car business at one time?
Nobody should buy a car. You should lease it only for 2 years. Never put any money down on it.
Interesting.
Only 2-year lease. If you can't afford the 2 years, do not do a 3-year lease.
Oh, wow. Why? You're always going to go over your mileage?
Well, I mean, if you're driving 50,000 miles a year, the lease is probably a bad idea. But even so, it's probably still cheaper to lease that car. Look, this is what I'm for. I've learned a lot about money watching what my dad did, and I never ever buy anything that I can lease.
Interesting. Well, but even a used car you wouldn't buy?
Look, I probably wouldn't buy a car under any circumstance.
This is so fascinating. I'm learning so much. I'm taking notes, Grant, just so you know.
Okay.
I know we got off on a tangent about cars, but it's so interesting. And I like what you said about how you learned to do something that you initially maybe were uncomfortable doing or didn't enjoy doing. And then you got really good at it. I feel like there are so many places in life where we can all take a note from that sort of thinking, because look, there's stuff that happens to all of us that you're like, God, I don't know how to do this. It's a lot to learn. And then if you actually really invest your time in learning whatever it is and trying to be successful at whatever that thing is, sometimes it actually turns out to be like one of your greatest successes, because you not only conquer it and do something that you actually didn't think you could do, but then maybe you surprised yourself, because that sounds like that's what happened to you. And you actually ended up being so good at it that these, companies were like, hey, why don't you come give us a few notes of our own?
It's crazy, but everything that I have resisted ends up being some door that I need to walk through.
Wow.
That opens up to some possibility for me. And like the social media thing, I didn't see the social media thing. When the first time I saw social media, I was 54 years old. Okay. 10 years ago, I had no followers. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't grow up in that age. Like your son, it's normal and natural to your son.
Well, it will be. He's only 5, but
Well, he's probably already a TikTok killer.
Oh my God. My father-in-law would have my head if I let anybody on TikTok in my house. Are you kidding me? He told us a long time ago the Chinese are spying on us that way. But that's pretty cool. 54, you were like, let me just go in and see what happens here. Yeah,
and I said, I started an account. And when I saw it, I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, this is unregulated. At that time, it was completely unregulated.
Yeah.
I can use it as much as I want. It doesn't cost anything. And I can say anything I want to anyone. And so I'm kind of like I'm an educator. I like educating people. I was bored in school. I thought education could always be more entertaining and fun. A fun way to teach people things, how to do something, quickly. And so I went on social media and I just started playing with these platforms, and like it literally transformed my business. We work with thousands of companies today because of that platform. I started educating people on things that I got good at, and people like that. They follow. We had 1 million people this week tune in for an event online that was free.
Wow. And it wasn't even the one with Eric Trump, with Lara Trump. I'm just kidding.
But it'd have been 2 million people if I.
So why do you think it is that you translate so well to people? Because people obviously are interested in what you're doing. is it because they aspire to be like you, because you are successful and you're not shy about your success? I've seen a lot of the things you've done on, especially on your Instagram.
Did you cringe at any of them?
Well, no, it's funny because the way you do things, I actually think is very tasteful. Some people do them and it's a little like, okay, like we got it.
Yeah.
But I think seeing how you did it, it's very tastefully done, but I do think, is it because you're an inspiration to people and people want to be like you? Why do you think you've had all of the follows on all these social media platforms?
Well, I think that I'm not tasteful half the time. Like, I'm not. I mean, I look at stuff and I cringe. I'm like, oh my God, I'm sitting on the top I'm sitting on a Rolls Royce on the.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. I'll have to go check that one out.
And I'm literally throwing money, So anyway, what I'm trying to do though is, that's not going to appeal to you, right? But there's audiences, and I think the reason we have done well there is because it's very raw, it's fast, it's unedited, it's a little bit in your face. I'm telling people the truth. I'm very similar to your father-in-law in some ways. Unscripted. I'm just gonna lay it out the way it is. If you don't like me for it, no problem.
Well, he's not upset about showing off the assets that he has. So, there are some similarities there too. What do you think would happen, Grant, if I sat on top of a Rolls Royce and was like just throwing the money out? Like, how do you think that would be received? I mean, people would. I couldn't even imagine the reaction if I did something like that.
Depends on what outfit you wear. So.
Obviously, it'd have to be in a bikini of some variety. I think that's the only way to successfully execute that one. Well, it's just so interesting that's what people really do enjoy. I think they tune in for that sort of thing, right?
There's an audience out there. That's the only way you can stop them, because you're competing with all this other stuff, right?
Yeah, that's true. They want to stop and look at it as they're scrolling through.
Well, that's all people are doing. They're doing this. If you just watch yourself move through it, you're just moving through it. So if you don't stop, I never really got your attention. So for us, about half my audience is Black under the age of 40. How did a white guy attract an audience? Like if I'm out in public and I see a 55-year-old white man or a 25-year-old Black kid, the Black kid knows who I am. There's like, there's a 10 times better chance, 10x, that the Black kid knows me. Now, the reason is because we go after that audience and we're talking to them in very street terms, if you will, very not big nomenclature, vocabularies, we just keep everything very tight and simple. And at the same time, we've had, raised $1 billion in the last 3 years over the internet, from accredited investors. So we're hitting both bands. They're all on social media. The whole world's there.
I know, it's sort of amazing. Were you affected in any way? Were you at any time like shadow banned, or did you ever get you were? Oh
yeah, I've been shadow banned on Twitter. Twitter, we couldn't get any followers on Twitter for the last 5 years.
How's it going now?
It's exploding.
Yeah, a little better.
I've added, 400,000 in the last 2 months.
Wow. Well, shout out to Elon Musk. You talked about this just a few minutes ago, but you were actually far ahead of the curve when it came to moving to Florida from, as you said, California. You did this all the way back in 2011. Yeah. Why did you decide to do that then?
Because it was obvious to me. We were having kids. We were just starting to have kids.
You knew way back then, though, that Florida was sort of the place to be. Why did you choose Florida? Just, tax purposes? Because that's a good reason in and of itself.
We looked at Nevada. So I told my wife, I said, Elena, we're going to sell the house. We sold the house before we knew where we were going to go. I said, we are going to leave the state of California. She's like, whatever, let's go.
Yeah.
And we had been there long enough, and I love the place, right?
It's a shame because California is such a beautiful state. Like, it really could be
broken place in the world.
Yes. It's natural beauty and just, it's wonderful. And it's so sad, I think, to see what's happened to it.
Yeah. And they were raising taxes. They were going to go from 10 to 13%, which is a 33% increase for those that don't know math. And it wasn't 3%. It was 33%. Okay, it's 3.3% more than the 10. And I'm like, I'm not going to give another third. Well, I own real estate all across the country, and I was paying taxes on the real estate that I owned in North Carolina. I'm like, this is crazy.
Right. Right.
And on top of that, they're funding psychiatric care in the kids' schools, like you talked about. They're funding. It's just insane, right? And I got to look at these billboards. So I said, we're going to sell the house. We sold the house. We did not know where we were going to go. We looked at Nevada, Nashville, Texas, and Florida. We didn't look at Florida. I said, never going to move to Florida in my lifetime. And then I had a gig in Miami. I had a speaking gig in Miami. And on the way across the causeway to Miami Beach, I called Elaine and said, we're moving to Miami. We didn't know where. So we came here and we rented a place for, 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Built our business. Didn't buy a home. We rented so that we could invest all our money and all the tax savings from California in growing our business. Went from 3 employees to 236 employees in 8.5 years.
Amazing. Wow. And obviously you're pretty happy with the decision you made.
Very, because I can go and use California as much as I want. I just bought a house in Malibu, and we go there 4 or 5 months of the year and just use the state. I use it like a lease car.
And there you go. The lease, we're back. We're full circle on the lease. So interesting. And the fact that you rented a house, I find interesting too, when you first moved to Florida. But you know what? It's a great way to do it. You get to kind of test the water, see what you like, see where you like before you fully, go all the way in for whatever it is.
None of your viewers should ever buy a house, by the way.
Wow.
That's probably as bad a deal as buying a car.
This is so fascinating. I have a lot to tell my husband. We've made a lot of mistakes so far.
Yeah, but I think you're an exception. I think you can play outside. I think there's a point where you can do whatever you want to do, and you're probably there.
Wow. What is the hardest lesson you've learned in life so far? It seems like you've been through quite a bit, but what would you say?
The hardest lesson. Mm-hmm. Well, don't use drugs.
Well, there you go. That's a good one.
Nobody beats the drugs. Nobody ever wins.
What's scary right now to me is obviously my kids are 3 and I just said my son is 5. So they're young, but it was very apparent to me growing up that drugs were just like, that was for losers, right? I don't remember my parents ever having like a hard conversation with me and saying, if you do drugs, X, Y, and Z will happen. I just knew that wasn't something I wanted to be involved with. Yeah. My dad was very clear that if I ever smoked tobacco cigarettes, that like my life would be over. I can say right now today, I've never smoked a cigarette in my entire life. Not that I would ever want to, because it was kind of not cool by the time I even got to the age that people would have smoked cigarettes. But I wonder how it will be when my kids are old enough that this starts to be an issue, because you look right now at how frightening things are with fentanyl. And it's not like, I say this kind of jokingly, the good old days where, you have a kid who wants to kind of test it out and just one time do something. You do one time and there's fentanyl laced in whatever it is and you're dead. Yeah. And that's happening across our country right now. It's very scary.
Look, I knew the first time I smoked weed, I didn't want to do it. I did it to fit in. I didn't want to. I knew it was the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
If my dad was alive, I would have probably been busy doing something else. But I had this big void in my life. And when there's a void, problems come in. When we're bored, my wife knows. She's like, do not let Grant get bored. Because when I get bored, I'm going to start eating things. Like I'm going to start eating everything in my vicinity. Everything becomes something to overcome and win at. So, yeah. That's one thing. The second thing that I learned was if you want to be financially safe in this country, you have to scale and get big. That anything in the middle class dream is no longer what it used to be.
So sad.
Yeah, it is.
Such a shame.
Need to go to the next level. Once you get to the middle class, you got to figure out how to go to the next level and not be comfortable.
Do you think we ever get back to a place where you can be comfortable at that middle class dream? Because that's how I generally grew up, and so many people that I grew up with fit that category, I think. Yeah,
but the middle class was built for banks, saving money, buying a house, retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks. These are education, 17 years to go to school to get an education. All these are indoctrinations by the big banks and Wall Street to keep people down, to suppress them below their potential. And with the internet, you don't need to do any of those things today.
That's true. So we got to just all take it to the next level, it sounds like.
Level up like you have.
Level up. I don't know that can we say that? Have I leveled up? Is that official?
There's never a top level.
I still feel like there's room. So I'm going to keep going. What is one piece of advice you could give someone who is listening to us today that would make an immediate impact on their future aside from level up and don't do drugs?
I would give people money advice, and I would tell people that you need way more money than you're planning on. Nobody's telling you the truth.
Right.
The government's not going to tell you the truth about money because they've given up on any idea that you could actually create more money. So they're going to try to convince you that you should be comfortable with the money and the handouts that they have for you. I wouldn't take them, and I would try to figure out how to get in the top 1 or 5% earners in the world, not the country, in the world. And anyone can do that, by the way, because I can give you proof of thousands of people, no education, Black, women, 13-year-old kids that are actually making like enough money to be in the top 5%, which is where the only people that are protected in the United States of America today have enough wealth. And I'm not talking about happiness here. I'm talking about enough wealth to at least make choices for their family that would be pro-survival.
Wow. It's really, it's kind of a scary space, I think, where we found ourselves here in America. First of all, you're right. I think we are so blessed to live in a country where if you decide right now, you're watching this, you're listening to this, and you say, I'm going to make X my goal, you can achieve whatever goal you have here in this country, because there is no place that gives you the kind of opportunities that we have in America and allows for, the trajectory of success that you're talking about. But you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to make a plan. You're going to have to get through the tough times and the hard days and be willing to do whatever it takes to get to that point. But what do you see happening long term here in America? Because it is very, first of all, sad, but I think frightening to hear from you, somebody who is an expert in this field, that financially this is not a comfortable place where we found ourselves in America right now.
Look, the people are playing by house rules. When you go to Las Vegas, do you ever gamble in the casinos? Have you ever sat down for 21 or crap?
I may have.
But don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody, okay? Well, look, when you play by the house rules, you lose, okay?
Right.
The house rules are built by banks. They're built by Wall Street. All these things that they say they're doing for you are house rules. Okay, my mama told me this. My mom was my best friend. She brought me to a casino. She's like, anything these people offer you, say no. Nothing here is good for you. And I'm like, well, what are we doing here? Oh, we're here to entertain ourselves. She's like, but anything they offer you insurance at the blackjack table, free drink, a room. Dude, they're not giving you that. So our 401ks, a loan on a house. A loan on the house is good for Bank of America and Wells Fargo. It's not good for the individual. You trap yourself, lose your mobility. Your audience will love this. They're going to hate me for saying it. It's going to create a big discussion. I get more hate for this one thing than anything. When I tell people, do not buy a home in America. It is a trap.
Wow. So fascinating. So interesting.
I would just tell people they need to, you're not financially literate. You have been indoctrinated to do a certain thing that benefits a certain group.
That's probably accurate. I mean, we know that there's a bigger entity out there than any of us can see and even appreciate that seems to run things. And it feels like things are running, unfortunately, in the wrong direction, and it's not working, at least right now, for so many people. So, I don't think it sounds that crazy to hear the things you're saying. Let me ask you this. So if you go to Vegas, do you gamble at all? Are you playing slots? Are you playing blackjack? What are we doing out there?
I play blackjack. I'm going there. I'm doing a big conference there in this month, and I'll go out there in February, and I'll play blackjack, but I'm playing like $25 a hand. So I'll be the smallest player at the table, but I'm the guy with the most money.
So interesting. So this is the strategy that I often employ. And I am not a gambler. I'll just say that. But when I have had the chance to do it, I view it solely as entertainment, kind of
Exactly.
like what your mom said, right? I know what's going on there. And I know that these big casinos do not succeed if they're not taking in a lot of my money, of your money, whoever's money is out there, right? So I set maybe it's like $100, right? And I'm like, all right, if I double my money
I'm out.
or if I lose all my money, then I'm out.
Yeah.
And but it's hard because if you do double your money, like, oh, well, then I could just keep playing with this. No, you got to walk away. I've had my entertainment. And if I lose $100, it's entertainment money, right? Like that, I would have paid that maybe to go to a show. But other than that, I think you're right. I mean, how often do you really hear about people who are not like professional poker players or something going out and like cleaning up in Las Vegas? It's usually the opposite
You know what you hear? You hear everybody say, I broke even. Broke even means you lost money and you just didn't count it all.
That's probably right, because they were giving you all the drinks, Grant, as you said, the free drinks, and offering you, if they're offering you a suite there, they want you to stay there, and because you're giving them so much of your money.
Exactly.
Would you ever consider running for political office?
You know, I met with your buddy Roger Stone. I don't know if you guys are still friends with Stone, but he knows, like, he's done 50 years of this, right?
Yeah.
And he gave me I said, hey, what does it take to be a good politician? He's like, disciplined, telegenic, you got to like people, resilient, energy, and you got to be likable. And I'm like, okay, well, I got some of those things. I don't know that I'm disciplined enough to do it.
Yeah.
I think I'm too honest probably to ever do it.
It's tough.
And my wife says, you're never, ever going to do it. Never going to happen. But
it sounds like there's some interest.
There is 1000%, because I like blood sports.
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, gosh, it so is. Oh, well,
and I'll make a difference, you know, like I've done extremely well. America's been a great country for me. I mean, what I've done with our businesses is beyond. I wake up every morning just like, I cannot believe we created this.
So cool. I love that. I love to hear it. I mean, it really is what this country is all about. And you know, to get back to the beginning of our conversation, I think it's why so many people want to follow you. They're encouraged when they see someone like you who really did not grow up with any means to get where you are today, and yet here you are, and you're proud of it, and you're showing people how you got there and how they can get there too. I think it's so great. Where can people find you online, by the way, if people want to follow you?
Just put in that word Grant Cardone and you won't have to do anything else.
I love it. Well, Grant, thanks for joining us here on The Right View.
Thank you. Love you, your family. You know, just, you know, we always enjoy seeing you guys, and seeing you guys fighting a good fight. And
we're trying.
No, you are doing it. You're not trying.
Well, we'll check you out. We'll tune in for more. I don't know, whatever you're going to be on next, maybe a Lamborghini, a helicopter with like bags of cash. We'll check it out. We'll see what we've got going on with you coming up soon. But we want to say thank you for joining us here on The Right View today. And to everybody at home, as always, thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here next time for more.